Let's go live now to the Nationals' Senate Leader Bridget McKenzie. Your former colleague Joe Hockey called for some reform on negative gearing in his valedictory speech as he left the parliament. Is there room for some modest change here to maybe just put a cap on how many properties can be negative geared?
Oh, great to be with you, Kieran. I mean, the Labor Party, trying to tell the Australian public that they don't have a secret plan to change negative gearing, to instigate changes to capital gains tax, just beggars belief. I mean, you saw the Prime Minister in your opening segment just there utter those very fateful words for Prime Ministers, very carefully uttered, that he has no plans. But it's absolutely inconceivable that he hasn't discussed this with the Treasurer. And it either highlights the dysfunction of the government, that the Treasurer isn't talking to the Prime Minister, or the Prime Minister is once again seeking to be very tricky with his phrases to hide the fact that they are right now modelling changes to negative gearing and capital gains tax, either for their own policy or probably more likely, Kieran, to do a deal with the left-wing Greens, either before the election for the HAF or obviously in preparation for a minority Labor government, which will be doing everything we can to stop.
If they took any such change to the election, which the Prime Minister says is not part of the plan now, but if they do, is that fair enough if they take it to the people?
This guy changes his plans, as quick as he can change his underwear. He's weak, he's insipid, he is absolutely the worst kind of character for the times we find ourselves in as a nation now. We've got Labor productivity going through the floor in the construction sector alone, Kieran. So if you want to build more houses, we need to get Labor productivity going up. We need to get houses being cheaper, not dearer. Construction costs have gone up 40% since 2019. So you've almost doubled the ticket price, and that you can't tell me the industrial relation changes they've made, the energy policy changes they've made haven't had an impact on driving up the cost of construction. So that's the problem. The fact that this Prime Minister is now seeking to hide behind his words, I think, says everything about the man.
The underlying inflation down from 3.8 to 3.4%. I know there was a lot of talk about the headline rate yesterday, but that's still chipping away at that number and coming off those post-COVID highs. That's welcomed, isn't it?
Well, Kieran, what we've seen with the figures released this week is, a manipulated outcome by the Labor Party. They've sought to, have their policies over here with energy subsidy relief going into the economy and into households, and that has, done something with the headline figure. But the reality is, economists know, the Reserve Bank knows, that this has done very little with underlying inflation. It's done, and the government's doing nothing to really strengthen the fundamentals of our economy, which is now as weak as it's been since the 1990s. That's the reality. And that's why when you talk to Australians in the streets or at barbecues or at the shops, they're not feeling any better off under the Labor government, because they actually aren't. And so despite the Treasurer trying to manipulate the outcome, the laws of economics haven't changed, and Michelle Bullock knows it. And I think her response has been quite credible and indeed will serve us well going forward, given the lack of action by the government on the things that they should and could be doing.
But just to pick you up on that's fine in terms of the headline rate, but that underlying rate is down. The non-tradable or, domestic inflation down from 4.5 to 3.8. So it's all going in the right direction. That's a good thing, surely.
Well, Kieran, the reality is we have higher inflation than we need to have for longer than we need to have in this country. So, Chalmers is all, great to get out there and say this is an international problem. Well, the reality is interest rates are dropping in other like economies, and that's because their governments took swifter action than ours has. So Australians are going to have to be paying more for longer than they should have to, because of government inaction. So that's the whole point. We aren't going to see interest rates drop in this country before Christmas, when in other comparable countries they are, because those governments got the fundamentals right.
Bridget McKenzie, thanks as always. Talk to you soon.